All right, we're recording.
Well, right, I'm glad we're both rested and ready to go for this. You were texting me at like 4 a.m. last night, and I was awake.
I know. Well, we still don't have a washing machine. Our washing machine busted, so we still gotta go to the laundromat to do that. So my daughter needed clothes for school today, so my wife said, "You're gonna go do the laundry," and I decided to wake up at 3 and go do it, get it done. So, what were you doing awake?
I usually go to sleep, and this is a very bad habit, but like we were just talking about, like I'm overwhelmed with business stuff right now, and I'm trying to catch up. I go to sleep. Well, I tend to work when Holly works, and she works swing shifts in the emergency room. So she's working from either 2 to 2, 3 to 3, or 5 to 5. So if she's working 5 to 5, and I know that I could like get lots of work done, and it's just me in the house, and I'll do it, and I'll work until 5 a.m. So it's not the healthiest thing, but it seems to be fine right now. But I definitely need to correct that. So, the reason I wanted to do this podcast with you, this is just kind of a surprise for you, because I'm going to take over this show right now. This is not a podcast. This is an intervention.
It's an intervention. Oh no, I knew it.
Well, it's not a real intervention, but I was listening to your last podcast, which I think was your last one. And you were just talking about you're like, oh, do I still want to do this podcast or this? And then you're talking about maybe like starting to drink again and stuff like that. And I was just thinking to myself, I was like, what the fuck is he talking about? Oh, I'm sorry. I know yours is like PG.
Oh, no, you can swear. You can swear.
I was thinking, okay, good. I was like, what is he talking about? I was like, it sounded like you needed someone to talk to get more clarity on what was going on.
Cry for help.
It was very uncharacteristic of who I know you to be. Kind of, yes, because you were complaining, which I thought was interesting. And I always, that's always the first sign that something's not right. It's not a real intervention, but I thought it was a good avenue to explore, because just to start with the podcast stuff. I've been podcasting for 5 years. And you had started your podcast, and you graciously had me on. Thank you so much, my friend, and you to have me on. I wanted to explore with you, if you're into podcasts, because I think that's going to help answer the question as to whether or not you should be doing it still or not.
You kind of broke up there. What was the question again?
I said I wanted to explore with you, if you're into it, like the reasons why you have a podcast and you want to do a podcast, because I know that you're very passionate about it. And for you to start questioning whether or not you should be doing it, I was sort of wondering what your motivation with that thought process was.
I think it's more just a social media thing for me. I haven't had a good experience with it. I don't believe so. Just kind of comes to that. I mean, I love podcasting, man. I'm passionate about it. I love, connecting with people like you and, putting content out there and trying to be an ambassador for this movement and stuff. And that can weigh on people's shoulders too, trying to be an ambassador for this movement, trying to save the world. You know what I mean? That comes with some added pressure to be a role model, an example. And, you don't want people seeing you doing things you shouldn't be doing when you're talking this or doing that. So there's a little bit of stress with that. And, there's a little bit of stress, getting podcast guests on, setting it up, the pre and post editing and all that stuff. So I was trying to put one out once a week, and that was a little bit of stress. I love doing it, but I think it just got to be too much at one point. So just kind of laid back from that. And I don't know. I think it's the social media thing of it. It's like the podcast never really jumped off like I thought it would 3 years into it. I was hoping I'd be a little bit further along with it. Not to say I don't enjoy. Was I breaking up?
No, I had to lower the brightness on my phone because I realized my battery's going to die if I don't.
Oh, I thought you cut your video because I was breaking up. So I don't know, just kind of questioning if I want to keep doing it. And then I was dumb enough and I started a second podcast. So now I'm trying to do two things at once, and I think mostly it just comes down to the social media thing. Just not having a good experience with it. I don't like the way. Yeah, go ahead.
What's the bad? Yeah, tell me the bad experience about social media, because I'm always fascinated when people tell me that they have to take a social media fast, and they're like, "Oh, I got to get off social media." And I always think to myself immediately, I go, like, this is a totally like you curate your whole experience. We have follow, unfollow. You know what
Right,
I
right.
mean? Like
Yeah, yeah.
because my social media experience is amazing. I mean, obviously I can get stuck down a hole of watching people fall off ladders for an hour. You know, I mean, obviously I fall all the same traps that everybody does with like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
these little instant gratification and humorous memes and all this kind of shit. But like, for the most part, like my feed, and I'll do it every once in a while. And I'm actually about to do it where I highlight all the people that make my feed wonderful because I
Mhm.
curate the whole thing to elevate me, motivate me, like make me happy. You know, it's all rescued animals and organic gardening and fitness people and personal development. So I'm like, why, how do people like, what's the problem with social media? You're at the controls. You make it exactly what you want it to be to add value to your life.
I don't think it's in that sense it's bad. Yeah, yeah, because I pick and choose who's going to be on my feeds and who I follow and stuff like that for sure. But I think for me, it's more for just picking up this too much, checking it every few minutes. So I recognize that in myself that that's kind of another addictive quality behavior that I might have. Maybe because I'm seeking some kind of external gratification. So I don't like the way I pick up my phone too much.
Mm-hmm.
Plus I'm trying to create content, create a brand for myself. So I'm constantly in this thing. It's in my face all the time. My wife's always like, "Hey, get off the phone. Pay attention. I's here." So I recognize that, and so I don't like that I'm on this too much. Just from that sense, maybe not a social media thing so much. Maybe it's just a technology thing. Maybe I'm just in my phone too much, and that's what I kind of don't like about myself. Um,
You're not alone in that. That's where everybody's
I
attention
think
is.
everybody, you're right, everybody, and it's made that way. And I put a post the other day too. Like they design these phones like a slot machine. So you're constantly, moving your thumb like you're pulling the lever because you're waiting for that hit. You're waiting for that next excitement, and that's where you're addicted to it. So it's designed that way. But yeah, everybody's dealing with that.
Well, you know, it's interesting. A lot of the people that are just really passionate about creating content, a lot of them actually don't consume anything. Look at Gary Vaynerchuk and like Brian Rose and like
Right,
these
right, right.
people. Like they're not really looking at this stuff. They're using it as a medium and they're looking at their stuff and putting it out, but they don't actually use it. So like in a sense, we could separate the two things, you know. But I know how like I sometimes I go to put a post up. Like I put a post up about the podcast I just did with Holly last night. And as I open Instagram, there's some video that catches my eye, and I realize like 5 minutes in, I'm like, what was I here for? You know,
Right.
it's like it's a
Yeah,
muscle. We got to have some restraint over that, you know.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I wouldn't let that discourage you from doing the podcast because I think that it brings you tremendous value and joy. What is your goal with the podcast? What are you trying to do with it?
Um, like I was saying before, just be an ambassador, just be a voice, just so, like an avenue people can kind of see, just to get some information because I have a pretty good range of people that I interview and the content I put on there. So it's just an avenue just for people to get a perspective, to get a point of view. Not that all my ideas or my content's correct, maybe not necessarily, but yeah, I just like creating content. I like providing material. Just like when I follow other people, I love that there's stuff out there that I can kind of turn to and get some inspiration or some advice. So I just love the medium of podcasting. There's no real agenda behind it. Like when I first started, it was just me just sharing my experience, my story. And I love connecting with people who are like myself, flawed, a very flawed person, flawed background, and I can relate to that. And so sharing my experience with that. So no real hidden agenda behind it, but yeah.
Yeah, see, I think there's two reasons to really run a podcast, and it's not one or the other, it's one plus the other,
All
right?
right.
So
Right.
it's like for me, like I've been doing a podcast 5 years and I've made very, very little money. Like I would say no money, actually. If I think about the money I've put into it, just buying equipment and like
Right.
I'm in the negative on the podcast.
Yeah.
But I'm so passionate about the material that even if there was
All
no
right. Right.
opportunity to make any money or anything, like I'd be doing it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like, so but you notice how I do it. Like I get overwhelmed with business stuff. I got family stuff going on. So what I'll end up doing is, and I'm catching up now and I'm really trying to exercise some discipline around it. But like I would go 3 months without putting a podcast up and everyone would be like,
I
dude,
know.
where's
I
the
know. I
podcast?
know.
But you know, you can't let it stress you out. It has to be fun unless it has the second element to it. So the first element is like, regardless, we have this technology, we're putting a podcast out just because this is what we do. Like I'm always going to have a podcast. I haven't made money in 5 years, but I'm still doing it. Right.
Right. Right.
But the other part is, if you want it to be a business, you got to treat it like a business. So,
For sure.
but the first part has to come first. But then if you actually want it to be a business to make money, you got to treat it that way, and you got to give it that full attention. You might have to put investment into it. You might have to start taking out sponsored ads. You got to clip up you got to stay on top of that stuff at all times. And podcasts are generally rarely self-discovered unless, it goes back. You know what I noticed? Like when Periscope happened, or even with Insta Story, right? It brings us back to traditional television. Anybody has the opportunity to create stories or content. I don't know if you remember what Periscope was. That was the first live video app.
Yeah.
Where you can just look at a map and then drop into anywhere around the world. It still exists, but it's just not popular. It just lost its thing. But and you drop in, and then there'll be somebody sitting there. For some reason, it was a lot of people smoking weed, and they'd show you their weed and they'd smoke it live. Yeah.
Yeah.
What did I learn? I learned about something called like strawberry rainbow unicorn or something one day on that. I was like, that was my first Periscope that I looked at, and I was like, wow, this is a great technology. But then I realized something. It's boring as shit. So it goes back to traditional television. Just because everyone has the opportunity, the people with the most, the people with the people that most people are looking at are the people that have the natural ability to entertain or to engage somehow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if podcasts, so some podcasts take off because somebody just has that natural ability to everybody wants to watch them. But other people might be more in the middle, but a lot of effort has to go into getting that podcast in front of oh, that's what went off my light. Getting that podcast, in front of the eyes of everybody, because there's a lot of competition these days. So content doesn't really distribute itself unless it's next level amazing.
Yeah.
So then you got to treat it like a business.
Yeah.
You got to pay for it. You got to pay for the sponsored ads. You got to get it in front of people. You got to do all that stuff. I'm gonna fix my light here real quick. Just keep it off.
Yeah, I don't know. I think part of it for me too is I get sometimes I get a little bored with the content. I feel it's a little repetitive. So sometimes I get a little bored talking about food and detox and nutrition and stuff like that. So I think that's part of it too. A little bit of burnout from that sometimes. So I think that's part of it too. But I love creating content. I'm always, if I'm not trying to make YouTube videos or podcasting or something, I'm a content creator. So I just love creating stuff. And I think you're the same way that, it's just how we express ourselves. So I just love doing things of that nature. But I don't know. I think part of it too is just part of the social media thing and just questioning some bigger, deeper aspects of what I want to do, what I want to accomplish, where I'm going with this whole thing. Because I'm still getting a lot of resistance and from friends and family around me, with my lifestyle choice and stuff like that. So that kind of weighs into, okay, well, how far am I going to take this? How far do I want to push this? Am I going to push everybody away from me that I know, or am I going to give in a little bit, kind of meet them halfway? So I feel like I'm in a place now where reassessing, I guess. I'm just kind of refiguring out, what do I really want to do with this? Right? I'm passionate about, taking care of the planet and this and that, but at what cost? How far am I willing to go with this?
Do you mean getting resistance to what, your fitness lifestyle and all that kind of stuff, or the prepping thing?
Not so much the prepping thing, but just, I don't know, just coming at people hey, you can't put this in your body. You can't touch this, the chemicals, the environment, and just all the preaching that I do to people and all the things that I say that aren't healthy for you. And people are like, dude, just fucking relax, chill out, man. You're too intense with this stuff. You used to be a fun guy. You used to be fun to hang out with. Now you're like, oh, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that, blah, blah, blah. And so a lot of people are like, I miss the old Chris. Where's the old Chris? He used to be a fun guy to hang out with. Now you're this guy who's trying to save the planet and you can't do any of this stuff. So I'm trying to figure out where I fit in that now. You know what I mean?
I think I kind of get a sense.
It's a balance. So I don't want to push everybody away, but at the same time, I'm not going to go back to my old ways, but where do I fit into this now with the knowledge that I have now? Because I still see people as well, they're still in the matrix, they're still programmed, and they don't understand what I'm talking about. And to them, they're like, okay, now he's in a cult, he's into these, these communities of this, and then like, so we're butting heads. So I'm like, okay, where do I go with this now? With the information I have and the people around me, it's like, what's my spot? What am I doing? You know what I mean?
Well,
So
I'll give you some advice just from what I've done, because I've been living a radical cleansing life. Radical
yeah,
compared
yeah.
to, it's not radical to me. It's just normal life. Even
Mm-hmm,
Holly
mm-hmm.
doesn't even see me as radical, but like,
Yeah.
compared to family and stuff, intelligence is always attractive. So when you're intelligent about things and when you think outside the box, people are always attracted to that. That's why we always had those like cool, edgy high school teachers that everyone remembers that used to like, I don't
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
they
yeah.
used to like tell you about that cool music, or they used to like that. They were a little different than the straight-laced, kind of robot teacher that just like went through all the motions.
Right, right.
Um, so, and like everyone has that favorite uncle that like, knew about that band or whatever, it's like, like that, it just has that kind of like think outside the box mentality. So just living it and being that is probably the best way to do it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's what I do. I don't preach to anybody about anything,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
unless it affects me. If it affects me, like if someone's trying to like, I don't know, get me to eat some food or stick a thing in my arm, or like, then I'm, like take some medicine I don't need or something, like, yes, of course I kind of stand my ground with that stuff. But like in life, I don't do any of that stuff. But the mystery of it all and watching me behave in certain ways socially, people get very intrigued by it. And
Yeah,
then they
yeah,
want to know what's up. And then they just see me thriving and they see me content. And they go, what's that guy about? What's his deal?
yeah,
Even people I would never expect to be like that.
yeah. I
Like
think your best friends are always going to bust your balls, though. Your best close buddies will always bust your balls, but yeah.
up to a point. Interestingly enough, when I went to my first high school reunion, everybody was laughing at what I did for a living. By the second one, they were asking for business cards and they wanted to come. And I've seen like half my high school class in the treatment room.
Hey, I got this thing on my back. What's going on here? You're like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's funny.
exactly. And more people are into it, uh, and into it kind of just on their own. But then as soon as they decide to get into it, then you're the person they come to.
Right, right. Well,
Yeah,
to tie in 'cause I think you kind of started off with asking about the podcast and then the drinking thing. So did you used to drink and smoke when you were younger, but you didn't have an issue with it, right? You just kind of.
tremendous issue with it.
Oh, did you? Okay, I thought, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was one of the most challenging things I had to work through was cigarettes and alcohol,
Okay,
and
okay.
then the food stuff too, happened. But yeah, no, that was tremendously. Yeah, I used to drink myself into blackness about 6 nights a week,
Oh,
and
did you? Oh, okay.
two, yeah, total binge drinking was the worst.
Binge drinking, yeah. Oh, yeah,
Oh, you
because
broke up. You
yeah,
broke up on me a little bit there. Sorry, I didn't hear anything you said.
okay, I wasn't talking. You kind of broke up too. Um, yeah, so I'm hitting 3 years this week, and so there is that voice in the back of my head now, and I'm sure everybody gets this. Like, okay, well, I'm 3 years in. I got this under control. So I think I could maybe have a drink on the weekend or something. And I know that doesn't work, right? I've always had that conversation, and it's never worked. Like moderation's never worked, but there is still that voice that's always in the back of your head, like, yeah, it's 3 years in. You could do this. You could get this under control. So that's always on my mind. And just exploring that not opportunity, but that exploring that idea of like, well, could you do it now? I don't know. I think I know deep inside I can't, but it's more lately. It's been popping in my head. So
Well, it's funny. I looked at your post that you posted on Instagram the other day. I think it was yesterday or the day before, and it was celebrating 3 years sober. And you were like, "This was one of the most challenging but rewarding things I ever did in my life." And I thought,
yeah,
and I screenshotted it. It's on my phone right now because I wanted to remember to bring it up because I thought that's so interesting. Like, because I kind of had the same thing happen with me, and I thought, how interesting is it that the most challenging and rewarding thing in your life was just you being normal? Because alcohol is never part of the equation for a human being, for a human anatomy, for our, it's just not a part of it. And it actually, in many cases, I would say a big percentage of it, it actually is a very low vibration. It brings a very low vibration and negative energy into humanity. There's people like my wife that can have alcohol rarely and occasionally at whenever she wants and with no issues and celebrate, and but
yeah,
for
yeah.
most people, It's not what it is, right? It's like it brings out the worst in people. They fight, they make bad decisions, they get into car accidents and kill people. Alcohol has got a very dark effect, I think, on humanity. I'm not a big fan of alcohol culture, but I'm not anti-alcohol in regards to just it being it. Obviously, it's no problem at all, like for my wife or something like that, or certain people.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, how interesting that celebration is just you being normal. And even for me too, but like it was your post. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was just you not engaging in something that was problematic for you.
It's like somebody wanting kudos for being a good dad. You're supposed to be a good dad.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like, yeah.
Yeah. You're supposed to pay your child support. Like, what do you want a pat on the back for?
Yeah.
And I was listening to your podcast, and you were like, yeah, I was thinking, like, what if we go on that castle tour through Ireland on that vacation one day, and I want to have a beer at a pub somewhere.
Right.
And I thought, wow, listen to this fucking story Chris is telling himself. I've done the same thing. I sat down in Dr. Bish's office and I talked to him. This is when I was 19. I had just stopped drinking, but I was so in love, obviously, with drinking culture. Although I had gone through the struggle and the challenge of getting away from it and breaking the addictive cycle of it. And I asked him, and even though I'm sitting in Dr. Fred Bish's office talking about, plant nutrition and cleansing, and and I said to him, so he was talking to me about the biological healing process. It was a new term for me at 19. And basically what happens when you eat a plant-based diet and you get into cleansing, you engage it's the body's innate healing capabilities, and he was talking to me about this. And I said, how would like occasional alcohol interfere with the biological healing process? And like I laughed thinking back, but like even then I needed to slip in that question to try to justify somewhere in my head about how like, I could still heal and like cleanse and like, have a little, I was trying to make sense of it in my head. But really like the thing that I would always ask myself over the years in regards to any type of departure from clean living is just what value does it bring to my life? I'm not a purist. Like, like if I thought that having a glass of wine at my wedding would bring some value to my life, I would do it. Like, I'm not like,
Yeah.
But I could never find a reason.
Right.
Like when I drink a green juice or exercise or jump into a cold plunge or something, I go, what value does this bring to my life? A fuck ton of value, like a lot of value. I love it. When I think about like, it's my best friend's wedding and they want me to do a shot with them, is like, it doesn't do anything for me. It makes them, it creates a vapor of happiness for them because they're like, yeah, Mike took a shot.
Yeah.
But I go, I don't care about that. I care about me. Now, does it bring any happiness to me? So that's the only question I think we need to ask. Like, is it going, are you going to sit back and go like, shit, I wish I would have had some beers at that pub in Ireland? Or are you going to just be like, or is it going to be fleeting satisfaction? And I think that's the big question.
Yeah. I always think it comes, it comes down to maybe the stress around it too. Is it going to be more stressful to say no or more stressful to do it and then have shame about it afterwards? So you got to pick which road is going to be less stressful for you. So, and then you just got to figure out, are you going to be militant? Are you going to be a purist about things? Are you going to, eat something shitty, but then you're not going to do something over here? So you got to pick and choose your battles. Where do you want to cave in sometimes and not cave in, and find that balance. Yes,
this is all perspective and mindset too, though. So like you just said, like you're going to be militant or a purist about it. That's only a matter of perspective, right? So people might look at me and say like, oh, Mike's so like militant. He doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, he eats all this vegan food or whatever. But for me, it's not. And what I always tell people when people say like, wow, you have a strict lifestyle. Like I say, listen, eat like me for a week and tell me who has the strict lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right. Because they're the ones that start to freak out when they can't have the cigarettes, the alcohol, the burger. You know what I mean? I don't freak out. I'm not freaking out at doing anything. Right. Like,
right.
But if you have somebody like try to live a clean life that doesn't, that suddenly feels like they're the one that's being much more restrictive. Because like, God, I remember having a family event once years ago, and there was members of the family that were upset because we weren't going to have any animal food on the menu.
Really?
For one it was one
meal.
It was one meal. It was a dinner. And I was like, wait, but I'm a purist. I was like, it's
right.
about one meal. You can eat breakfast and lunch with some bacon and burgers if you want to, and then come hang out at this family barbecue. But like, So it's all really perspective. Like, maybe you're not being a purist. It's just everybody kind of has their own thing.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
but I understand what you're talking about, just like kind of feeling separate from the group. I mean, like when I was in New York, I brought all my friends to this really beautiful rooftop bar so they could drink and we could hang out and I could get some fresh air and have some cool views. But
Right.
I get like, I do try to meet a lot of friends out for lunch at juice bars and stuff. And a lot of them do it because, friends in their 40s are getting into their health now and stuff. But when it comes to 10 p.m., they don't want to just go to the health food restaurant. You know what I mean? They want to
Right.
go.
Yeah.
So I get trying to like fit in like with your previous lifestyle. I think there's always a way to do it though. And I've always have.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think there's another angle too when it comes to like the drinking thing or addiction things and like recovery itself too, because someone else said something on my post as well. Being sober doesn't have to be a lifetime thing. There is recovery. If you can fix your mental behavior of why you were doing that self-medicating in the first place, if you can do the tools and do the homework and correct those behaviors and fix the addictive qualities, then maybe sobriety doesn't have to be forever. Maybe you can get to a point where you can just drink occasionally and you have it under control. I don't think it has to be sober for the rest of your life. I think if you do the homework and fix those thought patterns, then maybe you can do that. That's always the question that I think about too.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think it's a slippery slope, though. That's the slippery slope. That's the voice saying we
Well,
can do this, but yeah, that's the
I'll tell you something. There's a family member. I'm not going to say who it is. Alcoholism runs in my family. There's a family member. Won't say who it is, and he drinks sometimes. I know he was an alcoholic. He stopped drinking. He didn't drink for like 15, 20 years, 30 years. I actually don't remember how much, but from when I was a kid upward, and he he I noticed like 20 years later, 30, probably 25 years later, he would have like wine on New Year's. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, And sometimes he drinks now. Not an alcoholic, no issues. But I was told by his wife that, she does have to keep an eye on him because then sometimes he'll just be drinking in the middle of the week for no reason all of a sudden, But like
yeah.
he's not slipped into anything. I'm not like it's fine, like everything's fine. He doesn't drink every day, nothing like that. But
How long was he sober for?
like 20 plus years.
Oh wow, a long
20
time. Oh
plus
wow.
years. Yeah. But so yes, he does drink sometimes and he's fine. I also feel like I fixed my shit too. I feel like I could have a glass of wine or a beer today and then never have one again for the next 10, 15 years. I just never find any value in it. And I'm far too vain. I don't want to look puffy and gross and get dehydrated and get,
Yeah.
just not, I
Yeah.
don't want it. I'm so naturally high. I'm like, what, it would only take value away from my life. And there's nothing so delicious to me about an alcoholic beverage that ever brings me back. But yeah, I would agree. I think certain people can fix that part of them. It is a slippery slope though, and you won't know.
Yeah, you won't know until you're back in the bottom again. Well, I was afraid though, because I always associated drinking and smoking cigarettes. I'm afraid if I have a beer, I'll be back to smoking cigarettes in 2 seconds, and I don't want that. Quitting the cigarettes was the best thing I ever did, man. By far none.
See, if that's even a thought for you, I'd probably say
Yeah, don't even entertain it. Yeah, exactly.
I quit drinking before I quit smoking because I knew that if I quit smoking first, it would just be
Yeah, you
back right
wouldn't.
into it. I just,
Yeah, yeah.
I'd make a bad decision immediately. I used to sit in the diner and I used to drink like 5 or 6 cups of diner coffee with half and halves in them, with like 2 to 3 half and halves in each one, smoking cigarettes. And my friend
Yeah.
James, who's an artist, he was like, he would come hang out with me because like we were doing the sober thing. We'd hang out in diners like on Friday night and chat and talk about girls. We were young, like 19 years old, 18 years old. And that's how I kind of got through it. Now it wasn't a healthy habit, but it was like my way of dealing with the fact that I wasn't out, dealing with my anxiety, getting away from alcohol, not going to the bar,
Right, right.
and yeah, it works. It worked. Now, was it a challenge for you when you stopped drinking? Was it were you like counting the days, like the moment you were like, this is out of control. Like, let me just stop this. Like, was it like a mental game going on for the following year?
You know what? It wasn't a mind fuck like I thought it was going to be. The fear of quitting held me back far more than doing it actually quitting itself. The fear of the unknown of, oh my God, what's life going to be like? It's going to be miserable. That held me back for a long time. I think that was my biggest excuse, was like, life's going to suck. But then once I stopped, I realized, oh wait, life keeps going. Life ain't so bad. Life's actually better. I wake up in the morning happy, not hungover. So I think that was a huge part of it. No, I had a pretty smooth transmission or
Nice.
transition. So yeah, it wasn't bad at all. I just got a couple days together, stringed a couple more together. 1 week turned into a month turned into a year. And I'm like, oh my God, this whole time I could have done this. So yeah, it wasn't that bad. Now I'd never
No.
hit rock bottom. I wasn't like at my wit's end or anything. I just got lucky, man. After trying every Monday, it finally stuck. For some reason, it finally stuck. So
See, I feel like you never hit rock bottom, but I feel like because you're a seeker and a health seeker, and you
I
like
knew,
to
I knew,
elevate
I knew.
yourself, I think you recognized it was wasting your time.
Yeah, I knew.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, why don't we get to a couple of these questions, some detox questions. But before we do, two things. I want to say congratulations on your wedding.
Thank you,
We
sir.
haven't talked since you got married, and nice, nice. And congratulations on launching your T-shirt company, Roots and
Oh,
Sky.
thank you. I'm wearing one right now, actually.
Was that it? Is okay.
Yeah, this is the Guided by Purpose, Driven by Passion, Empowered by Plants shirt. This is the men's shirt. Thank you.
Nice, nice. So, how long have you been doing the T-shirt idea? How long has that been rattling around in your head?
Well, it's been rattling around for a really long time, but I started it probably about a year ago, and it's definitely on top of all the other things I was doing. So it took a long time, and it's interesting. Like even if you just have a shirt with some words on it, like from concept to execution, could take a little bit of time. Well, probably not for someone that works in fashion or design, but I have a design background, but obviously it's not what I've put my attention into. But I've always loved T-shirts. Like I've always loved like graphic T-shirts. I used to love the comic book and Dungeons and Dragons ones when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then I got into the heavy metal T-shirts. I loved the imagery as a kid. Like I still love it now. I just think
Iron
it's like
Maiden.
wow.
I love the posters. I hate the music. I love the posters.
Right? You don't like Iron Maiden, really?
Yeah. I don't
That
know.
was the first band I ever saw live.
Oh, no way.
I was like 10 years old, and my uncle, I bought the tickets because anything went in the 80s. He didn't need ID or anything. I bought the tickets, and it was in New Jersey. I think it was at the Meadowlands Arena, and my mom was just like, "What in the hell are you going to do with these? Like, you can't drive. You can't even go." I couldn't even get there. And she's like, "You're too young to go." And then my uncle, God bless him, he was just like, "I'll take them." My uncle took me, and it was great. It was so good.
Nice, nice.
But yeah, the imagery, all of that. I used to look at an album for hours and just look, and there'd always be some like secret satanic thing in there that wasn't really satanic, but it's like we laugh at it now, but like, and we'd always be trying to find the magic in the artwork, and like very special time for imagination. So I always loved stuff like that. And like, as I got into plant-based living and stuff, I just got really passionate about that. And I just wanted to make T-shirts to celebrate that. And I saw a lot of goofy ones out there. Some really cool companies make cool clothes like Herbivore and stuff, and vegetarian. But there's like lots of other stuff that's just kind of goofy. And I was like, I kind of wish that like there was some more cooler stuff that I could wear. So I started doing that. So yeah, thank you, sir.
Yeah, I almost started one time. I did all the research. I was gonna buy the shirts. I was gonna buy the like the templates, whatever you call it for your design. And then I was going to buy the machine. I was going to press it all myself. I was going to ship it myself and did all the research, but never jumped on it.
Probably a good thing because most things are now print on demand. And even though that has its own complications, screen printing your own shirts requires a tremendous investment because then you got to own every size. You got to own bulk shirts. You got to make them. And
a lot of overhead. Yeah.
It's a lot of overhead. It's the old way of doing things. So
yeah, for sure. All right.
Hey, before we jump into a question, you sent me that video that Paul Chek was talking to someone. I don't know the guy's name.
Oh yeah, it's not out yet. I was gonna listen to it, but it doesn't come out for another week or two. Yeah.
What doesn't come out?
The podcast that he interviewed some guy that were kind of anti the vegetarian diet or something. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and I see me a clip. Oh, I lost you. You froze up there, so I'm gonna wait for you to come back.
Okay, you broke up too for a second. Okay,
we back? Cool.
Yeah.
So did you send me a sneak peek? Was that what it was?
Yeah, I thought it was an actual. I thought the podcast was already out, but it was just like a IGTV sneak peek thing. Yeah.
I made it 2 minutes in, and I probably shouldn't comment because
don't have the whole story.
I don't have the whole story, but just from their first 2 minutes of speaking, I just knew that their line of reasoning was so incorrect. I mean, it's this common argument that a plant-based diet destroys the environment because of farming. And like farming is destructive. It forces out all the other animals. It forces out for a lot of scale farming like, farming done at scale. It's a lot of monocropping. It's keeping out a lot of natural plants. And like, so on some level it is, but when we eat animal food, the amount of land that needs to be treated in the same way, if not worse, for alfalfa and grain and corn and like just to feed these animals, it's a tremendous
Right.
departure from just growing like broccoli and lettuce. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like especially if you get into organic farming and get into intelligent farming, which unfortunately most of the farming we do is very unintelligent. But like if people get into organic farming, they stop dumping pesticides all over the place, and if they do proper crop rotation or if they do permaculture, it's quite harmonious, and there's a lot of wild animals and insects and bees that live on a farm, and like it can be quite symbiotic that way. We just farm very unintelligently. But if once we introduce animal food at scale, it becomes a huge problem. I mean, eating plant-based is going to minimize the negative effects of farming. I mean, we can only do our best. But they were talking about like, oh, vegetarians think they're doing something good, but like monocropping kills all these animals, and I'm like, dude, where do you think that, the food for these cows and pigs and goats or whatever you're eating comes from? It
Yeah.
comes from monocrop fields, and you need to
Right.
do more of that to feed them, just to feed you. I'm like, why? And Paul Chek, I know he he creates a lot of value, and he's a very smart man. He's very spiritual too. But I just thought in the first 2 minutes, I didn't have time because we were coming onto this to finish it. But I was like, this is so way off. I was like, he might have more to say, but like, I was like, this already is so way off. It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, I think he was going off the that Game Changers documentary that just came out, and he was calling it some beautiful propaganda to get people to go vegetarian or something. It's like, yeah, he doesn't agree with the vegan diet at all. He doesn't think that's genetically, maybe some people don't do well on it. I don't know about that. I don't know.
yeah. Well, I mean, humans are omnivores. I mean, he's right.
Right, you said
Humans are
that. Yeah,
omnivores.
yeah,
Yeah, but most people don't understand the detoxification process, and they get very confused, especially the fitness guys. Like if Paul Chek right now went on a vegan diet for a year, he'd probably lose so much weight and get weak, and because he'd be detoxing. But he wouldn't understand that, and very few people do, because it takes a little bit of time to move through that process.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
absorption issues. It's absorption issues, and then people call it deficiencies. No, you're just not absorbing properly because you got work to do. But
yeah, and also the endogenous waste coming out of people, making them not feel well, and their body shedding all of the muscle that was built on inferior building blocks.
yeah. Okay, well, that might lead us into our first question here. So I don't know how long we've been going so far, like 30 minutes, 40 minutes?
I don't know. Doesn't tell me here.
All right, I don't know if we can get to all these. I usually don't get these many questions when I post something, but all right, first question is from Lou Del Mar. Stomach bloating while mono-fruiting, raw for 3 months, what to do about it? And then I asked, what kind of fruit are you eating? And they just said melons and apples, all mono meals.
Yeah.
So the first thing that came to mind to me was fermentation, maybe some kind of fermentation in the gut, maybe endogenous waste still in the gut somewhere. So she's getting some kind of bloating. That's my first guess, but what do you think?
I do. I think that, there's a lot of, so whenever I get these questions, even on my Q&As, it's always difficult because you don't get to see the person. So you don't know the condition of their body. Do they have a flat abdomen and a muscular build? Are they athletic? Like, what's their body telling me about them?
Right. Yeah.
And also, I don't have a health history, or I can't even have the opportunity. So I actually don't have a meal diary, So sometimes someone will say something like, oh, I'm doing a mono meal of apples, I get bloated. Okay. But it's coming after a mono meal of avocados that happened just 2 hours ago. So now we have this transit issue of food, because water-based sugary fruits move through the system very quickly, with protein or anything like that slowly. So when we put things on top of that, right, sometimes what'll happen is it'll get held up in the stomach or the upper digestive system, and then it'll start to ferment into alcohol and gas, right? So in sense, people think that they're creating space between meals, but their stomach's not actually empty when they're eating fruits and things like that. A lot of miscombinations lead to this gas and this bloating. It's not a good thing. Another thing is endogenous waste. Like, how long has this person been doing this? Do they have a full colon? Do they have a full gut? Are they putting fruit sugar into a body that's not clean, open, and free? Are they putting it into a system where it's going to stagnate and get held up?
Right.
And that's going to lead to fermentation and gas. Yeah. And also, some people overeat. A lot of people on fruit diets, because they're not, because the fruit movement tends to be very fat phobic and salt phobic, and even protein phobic in a lot of ways. Like, they're never really satisfied. So they're trying to get these massive amounts of calories from sugary fruits, and they eat a ton. This is what Durian Rider and 30 bananas a day was all about. I mean,
Yeah.
that 30 bananas was one meal, it wasn't like broken up usually. You blend it all together and drink the whole thing. That's
Yeah.
an absurd amount of food,
Yeah. Well, that kind of just made me realize, made me think, because I did a 5-day water fast a little while back, and you kind of gave me some advice on how to break it. I didn't listen. So I had that banana smoothie. Dude, I was suffering for days after that.
Yeah,
I didn't listen, man. I was like, oh, why didn't I listen to Mike? Oh, I was suffering, dude. Yeah.
yeah, and you only fasted 5 days.
That was just 5 days, yeah.
People break water fast improperly at 30 days, and it becomes a problem. I've even seen people end up in the hospital. Dr. Bishop, he thought he killed himself after one of his long, epic water fasts where he broke it. I think he broke it with watermelon or something like that. And he said when that fruit hit the residual waste that his body was trying to release from the fast, because he was water fasting, so no colonics, no raw juices.
Yeah, I
Raw
wasn't.
juices will
Yeah,
get you to poop.
I was constipated. I wasn't pooping well. Yeah, that was the
Yeah,
danger zone you talked about. Yeah.
yeah. So once you're not pooping, to some degree your internal chemistry is doing corrective work, but you're not really cleansing, right? Or you're at least not cleansing to the potential that you can be. So then he put some fruit sugar on top of that. He said because he was in such a contracted state, and I think he fasted for over 40 days or up at around 50
Oh
days,
wow,
right?
wow.
He said because he was so clean and in this contracted state with no pressure in his cells, when he created that fermentation and pressure, it created so much back pressure against his cell structure. He said his legs swelled up with edema, the weakness in the joint and muscle leg. Like, he went from feeling amazing on this fast. It was time to break it. It was a long one. But, when you're that deep into a fast, you've cleared so much obstruction out of your body. Like, you are straight at that point. You know what I mean? Like, you're ready to go. Now, he was ready to eat, but he was also very cleansed. And really the safest thing to do is like celery sticks, maybe a little orange wedge, and suck it and do the, like, just to kind of like introduce sugars slowly and give your body, stimulate bowel movements and like get things moving without putting lots of sugar in. Everyone's always like, I'm going to do a fast and break it with watermelon. That might be okay on a juice fast because you've been taking in sugar and stuff, probably a little sweetness in your juice, but water fasting, you gotta be real careful with that. Yeah. And a banana, not to be too technical and crazy, but a banana is one of the least cleansing fruits. So it's not like, it's we eat them. They're great. It's good to have, but it's not pineapples or watermelon or something that's moving super quickly through the system. Bananas are very dense and carb rich, and they'll sit in the gut and be full. And if you haven't eaten for 5 days, like, it's going to feel like a ton of bricks.
Yeah. Why did I just lose my question?
So you introduced me to this group, this Robert Morse group, and when I was joining, they're asking me these questions, and they're like, "Do you understand and accept all of the teachings of Dr. Robert Morse?" And I'm thinking, like, I don't know. I don't even know this guy. And I was like, I'm trying to join this group, and they're like, "Why do you want to join this group?" And I wrote because Chris wants to share something with me, and I can't see it.
Oh man.
I don't know anything about him. I do know a little about him, but I've never gotten deep into his work. He was not a prominent person when I was learning all this stuff, so I didn't know. And people are always like, "What do you think about Dr. Morse's product or protocol?" And I'm like, I feel like I should know, but he just was not somebody that ever made the lecture circuits. He's not someone that ever wrote a book that I read. This is all pre-internet, And that's when I got my foundation in this stuff. And then once the internet hit, I didn't go down too many video rabbit holes and stuff. So
a lot of people don't know him. All right, so we get to our next question from Perrine Sauce Villies. Probably saying that wrong. What about she's got a lot of questions here, so kind of just narrow this down. What to do when someone has allergic reactions to fruit, where people don't do well eating to fruit, and she kind of goes into maybe some skin issues and why you get skin issues in some localized areas and not other areas from fruit.
Yeah, sometimes it's fermentation from having a yeast condition in the body. Sometimes it's from having a toxic chemistry. And that'll clear up as somebody cleanses and they could eat different fruits. But some people just have, because of certain fruits are, like, let's take pineapples, for example. A lot of bromelain in there. Bromelain breaks up protein in the digestive tract. It's really good. It helps they use to tenderize meat, right? and it has and bromelain, when you eat it, it'll just start destroying your tongue. Like it's
Yeah, your
very,
lips. Yeah, your lips.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can do your lips, and it's just a natural response to the enzymes in that fruit. So if it doesn't go away for some people, I just say move on to another fruit. It's got to happen. I mean, Dr. Bishy, who's one of the cleanest humans I know, he is the cleanest human I know. He has an allergy to romaine lettuce and to avocados. Very slight, makes his throat get a little swollen. But he goes, yeah, he goes, I eat them sometimes. He goes, but my body responds to it. Plants have, and fruits, but especially like greens and wild foods, they have different pesticides in them, like self-created pesticides to protect them from different bugs and insects and things like that. And this is why we have a liver. Our body has to deal with that stuff. This is why we have detoxification organs. So in some people more than others, they have a reaction to some of the inherent aggravating compounds in plants.
Yeah. Didn't a guy write a whole book about that? About how plants are poisonous and you shouldn't be eating plants? Is it lectins? It's not lectins. It's
Yeah, that was Dr. Gundry. I forgot his first name.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's overblown though. That's
Yeah.
not. Yeah, that guy. I mean, I get what he's trying to do there, and I think it's an interesting observation. But if you look at all the blue zones, people eat high lectin foods. He also
Studies.
stretches it way far. Yeah, he talks about how like oh, don't you see, like Italians never eat tomatoes with the skin on them, and they know to take the seeds out. And I'm like, no, Italians do that to make a smoother sauce. Like the Italians don't. Like this is not like that. Nobody's talking about lectins in Italy and ancient Italian culture when they're eating pasta and like make it. No.
Yeah.
He's stretching that one a little bit.
All right. Keisha Williams asks, sensitivity to pesticides. I'm guessing there are many that experience symptoms but don't realize it's from poorly washed fruit. Maybe touch on how to wash fruit correctly.
Yeah, I mean, you got to. I mean, a sensitivity to pesticides is a good thing. It's normal. Like it's like when we were building out the studio at Vitality and they were using all the construction chemicals, and I'd walk in and my head would explode and I'd get a headache and my nose would start running and people would be like, oh, he's sensitive to these things. And I'm like, no, my body responds appropriately to these things. That solvent is a poison. Like, it's fine that my body responds this way. So it's an appropriate response, but trying to minimize it is rough. There's different produce washes you can do, but a lot of the time, if it's a water-soluble pesticide, it'll get drawn right up into the fabric of the fruit or vegetable. And they can be bioaccumulators of these things. And the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen is the best place to look. Because things like celery, lettuce, kale, they're sponges for pesticides. If you're going to eat non-organic food, there's plenty of things that you could eat that are less of a sponge for these things. But I would say eat organic first. And if you're going to wash it, you could use one of the citrus washes if you want to. But I don't know how effective those things really are. I mean, like the citrus wash, it might work on the surface of a fruit, but I don't know how much pesticide residue is actually on the surface of a lot of these things. I think a lot of it is actually in the fruit or vegetable itself.
Yeah. Well, I heard that glyphosate's not water soluble, so you can't even wash glyphosate off.
Oh, is that right?
That's what I heard. Yeah.
Well, I know that you work with Purium.
Yeah.
There's a lot of companies that are making these products, but the humic acid substances are really great at binding glyphosate.
Yeah. Partial binder. Yeah.
So the way that works, just for this person, if he's listening, I think you can do like 1 or 2 shots. I don't exactly know what I've not invested in any of these products just because, obviously I probably have glyphosate in my body just by the nature of living in the world. But I try to eat almost exclusively organic. Just one of my like non-negotiables. Not everything. I'll eat some non-organic food, but so I haven't invested in it. I haven't tested it myself, but I've had clients that have had incredible results from it. I had a client that the name from Purium
Biomedic.
Did you lose me there?
Yeah.
Oh, Biomedic. Yeah. For some reason, my Facebook picture just popped up.
I did that because I did that. I got your video feed because you're breaking up.
Oh, okay, cool.
So it helps with the connection sometimes. So.
Oh, cool. Okay. So if you can see that, that's my niece Riley, by the way. We had a long day in that picture. But the Purium products and the Restore one, I had a client that her son had such, your host has asked to start your video. Okay.
There you
Her son had such severe stomach cramping from eating anything that he went in for an endoscopy. He went to all these fancy doctors. Nobody knew what was going on with him. And she went to one naturopath in Jersey, and they gave him some Restore. One shot, just one. Shot it down. He's like, I feel great. I can eat again. That was it. That's all it took. Obviously, he was having a reaction to some type of
something. Yeah.
and every time he would eat, he felt like his stomach was burning. Not from, but it wasn't. They checked him for acids and reflux. They did an endoscopy. Went to, like a gastro in New York. Like it was like he was looked at properly, right? And they couldn't figure out what was wrong. But it was a hot burning every time he would eat something. He only wanted to eat cucumbers.
Huh.
So super interesting that the humic acid substances immediately corrected that,
Yeah. That's interesting. Kelly Kohler wants to know any tips for combating thyroid problems, specifically Hashimoto's.
Oh, I'd have to know so much. This is one of those questions where I'd have to know a lot to really get into it.
Yeah.
But I'll just say this. I mean, a lot of times people are looking for like and I don't know if this is what she's looking for, but a lot of times people are looking for like that one thing, like, oh, eat lemons with a little bit of cayenne every morning at 10 o'clock. And it's going to yeah. I don't have that. But the entire lifestyle allows for a lot of self-correction to occur. There's so many things that could be going on with thyroid issues, so many hormonal things. It could be different endocrine disruptors from plastics in the body. It could be they could be eating a diet that's not nourishing them in regards to fats. There's just a whole host of things I need to look at to answer these properly.
Okay. There's another good one here. I don't see it now. A guy was asking about, he had a test done, and so he's calcification on the prostate gland.
I saw this question. Yeah. Again, I'd need to know more, but the entire lifestyle and something like the Vitality Broom Cleanse paired with lots of colonics and potentially enzyme therapy would probably help with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a follow-up to that one. God, I wish I could find it. Oh, here's how to dissolve calcification on the prostate. And then someone asked, calcification in the salivary glands. Salivary glands.
I definitely don't have a specialty in that. I've actually never heard of that.
Yeah, I don't even know that.
But if that is indeed the case, I would also approach the lifestyle, and I would look primarily to the cleansing foods that are rich in enzymes and fruit acids, and not a fruitarian diet, but just like the Broom Cleanse. By the way, if people don't know what the hell I'm talking about, the Vitality Broom Cleanse is it's just a very simple formula of smoothies, juices, and salads paired with certain supplements that really help to break up waste. It's basically like a cleanse without juice fasting. It's a very safe cleanse to do, and it's a way to help break up waste in the body. And it's a perfect way to prepare for a colonic. So we invite people to do that when they come into the studio to get treatments. But I would do that cleanse, and I would do it not just for the 3 days like you're preparing for a colonic, but I would do it for an extended period of time. You can add a few different foods in there, but do elements of that every day in the structure that it's set up. And I would do a series of colonics to start that process.
Okay. Let's do one more, and then maybe we'll have to do a second episode to get the rest of these. Kim Carreras wants to know, how do you best handle emotional detoxing? I hear that a lot when people get into the lifestyle. All these old things are going to come up. You're going to have to deal with your issues, your stuff. That's what happened for me. The food was the gateway for me. And then the spiritual realm opened up. So yeah, you got to deal with your issues. So I guess she just wants to know how to deal with that. And that's very broad. I mean, it's going to be different for everybody. But
something that, yeah, and I mean, we use food for so many things. The stuff that we eat is not even food anyway. So what we want to do, and it serves the purpose really of it serves the purpose of lighting up the pleasure centers in the brain, giving us that little reward all the time, especially when we don't feel good about something. We found out, we just find out some bad news. We had a bad day, or like something disappointed us. a lot of people go to food for that, and it's very comforting. It acts like a little mini reward. It gives us some form of pleasure, even though it's fleeting and it very quickly passes and we're on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'd really recommend, especially if someone's just encountering any type of emotional turbulence, is to do 3 rounds of the Wim Hof breath work. I have emotional turbulence all the time. And a lot of it has to do with anxiety and stress around business, and like, it's just problems all day, you know, like that.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. Like, that's cause of entry, you know, I'm not complaining about that. So sometimes at the end of the night, what I'll do is I'll lay down on my yoga mat and I'll lay there and I'll do 3 rounds of the Wim Hof breathing, and the effect that it has on the body and the resetting it has on my mental state. All of a sudden I start having thought. So I can be my worst self-critic, and a lot of people can, you know, and I'll have these negative thoughts, you know, like, this is fucked up. You're fucking this up. You forgot to do this. Now everything's going to be fucked. Do the Wim Hof breathing. And all of a sudden the inner voice becomes so calm and compassionate. It's incredible. And I start having thoughts of like, you're too hard on yourself, and like, this is going to be okay. And then I'll start to have feelings of excitement, just around like, oh no, you have plenty, like, we'll get this done. This is the new idea. This is the new, you know, and like, it helps me with problem solving. And it does that by stabilizing my emotional state. I'm trying to think of some other tip of like, how to like work through that.
Well, I think for a lot of people, I think what they experience is they go into the lifestyle. So they're going to upset everything they know. They're going to change their diet, right? They want to get clean. They want to detox. They want to be a better person. And so they're going to come face to face with that relationship that they have to food. And I find that a lot of people, if their rest of their life is chaotic, that food's the only source of happiness they have. And so they're always going to go to that food because they didn't fix the other areas of their life. So it's a holistic approach. You need to look at all the aspects, not just that one thing. Otherwise, if everything's chaotic over here, you're always going to find and seek that happiness, that pleasure. And that could be that shitty food that you're eating, because it does light up the brain and make you happy. So really look at all aspects of your life, and that might help deal with some of the emotional aspects of it. Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that. You know, I was talking to Randy Moss from the Free Spirit Academy podcast, and
Yeah.
and you know, she works a lot with the topics of food addiction and being out of balance with food,
Mm-hmm.
and restrictiveness and feeling restricted, and the types of and the appropriateness for the cleansing life, where there can be a lot of rules or exclusions or things that can seem that way. It can definitely put someone out of balance that has issues with that. And I had to explain to her, I said, I never had any issues like this. It was pure enthusiasm, because I mean, I did use food to comfort myself. I had to work through some stuff, but I replaced it with such a passion and an enthusiasm for food, and I had so much fun with it. I never felt the lack. So for me, like being like, oh, I'm going to clean up my diet, I never felt like now I can't do the fun stuff.
Right.
It was like, I'm walking through this door into this world of all this amazing shit. Like, what's tempeh? What's miso? Like, wait, you can only eat raw food? Oh, wait, what's a juicer? Wait, you can juice that? Can you juice the cucumber skin? You can juice the cucumber? Really? I didn't know you could. Like, it was just so much fun for me that there was no, that it was like a lot of, I think, anything I would be missing was replaced with passion. So if I was, you know, if I had a hard day, like I couldn't wait to get home and play with my new juicer or my toy, or like make this food, like, in the things that brought me comfort started to, I replaced them with things that were better for me. Yeah. So if anybody feels like they're in something restrictive and they're having an emotional reaction around it, or they're not able to, or if they're feeling like, their cravings are too heavy, like that's probably a lot of what it is. Like they're in something that they're not fully invested and passionate about.
Yeah. And I think
Every diet.
Yeah, I think if you already have some form of eating disorder and then you go into a healthy diet, you might bring that over into a healthy diet as well. So you still need to fix those problems or that relationship to food for sure.
I don't
Yeah.
believe in orthorexia. I think that it's a pre-existing condition.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a pre-existing condition. I mean, eating food is medical. It's all it is. But we just put so much shit on it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I was on a show. I was on a Dateline NBC with John Stossel. I still get pissed about this. And this was many years ago. And he was they came to my studio. They wanted to do all this stuff. They wanted to come to like the raw food meetings. They wanted to come to the colonic studio and ask us questions. And they were like, we're doing a story on raw food, right?
Mm.
And they were like, but it's not going to be pro and it's not going to be con. Like, so just so you know, like we're doing this story on raw food, but it's not going to be a pro raw food story or vegan story or whatever. And I was like, yeah, it's cool. I was like, do whatever you want. You know, I was like, I don't care how you do your story. But what they did was they told us they were doing a story about veganism and raw food. And then as soon as the show started, it said, it was this guy, his name is Johnny Regini. And it said, Johnny Regini is killing himself with his diet. And I was like, what the fuck is this? And it was the first time I ever heard of orthorexia. And you look at this guy, Johnny Regini, walking around, and he very clearly had mental health issues. And I was so upset with the way they painted this. He was his bicep area was like it was thinner than my wrist is right now. And I'm a thin person to begin with. Like his YouTube channel was called I think it was called something like My Own Personal Stick Figure or something. He had an eating disorder. He had such a severe eating disorder. And I feel bad for him. He was obviously going through some shit, but he would obsess about food and want to eat only organic and do whatever. But obviously there was so much more going on there for him. And, so like he had a pre-existing condition. I don't think that people being intelligent or not wanting to be poisoned or wanting to learn more or wanting to nourish themselves, I don't think there's anything orthorexic about that. And I think being fascinated by it and celebrating it, that I think that should be encouraged.
Yeah.
Unless somebody has an eating disorder, but that's completely irrelevant when it comes, like if they had an eating disorder and ate, Burger King, like that's not going to help. So eating plant-based food also is not going to help. Like that's,
Right. Did you see that picture I just posted of Michael Arnstein? 12-year fruitarian. That dude's fucking ripped. Oh my God.
I don't know Michael, and I don't know if I'll ever hear this. And Michael, no offense, but I saw that picture of Michael and I thought, is he having a midlife crisis? He's got a shaved head and a beard, and he's posting.
Yeah, completely changed his look. Yeah.
I was like, holy shit! I was like, this guy went from like Westchester looking Wall Street guy. I don't know if he ever worked there or lived there, but but he had that look to him. And he now looks like I don't know, like a biker or something.
Yeah.
But yes, I did see those pictures of him, and that's some plant-based muscle right there. He obviously puts the work in. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, he's a good example. So is Ted Carr. He's bulking up quite a bit too.
He impressed me very much, because I hadn't seen him for a long time online or anything, and I remember him just being like a very clear looking and athletic, but like endurance athletic kind of look. And I knew who he was. And I knew he was into like a fruit diet or whatever. And then when I saw that picture of him, and I thought, oh, wow, interesting. I thought, I bet you Ted's one of these fruit guys that went into eating cooked vegan food, because building bodies like that is easy when you eat a lot of cooked vegan food. So I was like, I don't want to say easy. You got to put the work in, but I'm just saying when you're trying to get your calories from fruit, but he's still eating a very pure diet. I think what he's doing is I think he's eating only once a day, and he's maximizing the human growth hormone stimulation of a long intermittent fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that works really well. There was another guy. What was his name? He was very strange. He talked like in the third person. He was like this, he was this bodybuilder vegan guy. And a lot of people, when the videos first came out 10 years ago, they were like, this isn't true. Because he would say like, we only eat once a day and like stuff like that,
Yeah.
And I thought he was talking about him and his wife or something, but he was just talking about himself. And he had this very strange way of speaking, like this very like new age. I got to find this video, but he was huge, stacked with muscle, and he was eating very clean plant food only once a day. And I never understood it like 15 years ago when I first saw the video. I was like, how's this guy like only eating once a day? Because sometimes if I eat twice a day, I still don't put on weight like that.
Right, yeah.
And I was like, how's he doing that? Eating a vegan diet like that. And as we've learned about intermittent fasting, it's because it stimulates human growth hormone when you do that. So it's a tool that bodybuilders can actually use.
Yeah, it's very popular in the bodybuilding community.
Yeah. But what I'm watching a lot of these people do that are doing these one meal a days, they'll be like, I only eat in a 90-minute window. And they pack in an absurd amount of food. And I'm like, that's not exactly going to work long-term for you either. Because you're giving the body a shit ton of food to have to work through. You're stuffing yourself, over consuming. And then you're just stacking calories that you're going to use throughout the day. Be better off eating lighter, maybe, but not three meals plus snacks, but eating like 1 to 2 meals a day, but lighter. That's my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never done that one big heavy meal thing. I can't do it. Did Michael Arnstein start Woodstock? Is he the one who
Yes, he
originally
did.
started? Okay, I thought so. Yeah. Yeah, I reached out to him. I reached out to him to see if he'd come on the show. I haven't heard back yet. So.
Yeah, he probably will.
Yeah, he'd be a good interview.
He will.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting. He was always kind of a mystery to me, that guy, because I looked at him and I thought, how did he get into this? Because he didn't have he didn't have a hippie look. He didn't have like the weird eccentric East Village health food store
yeah
look. Like, he just didn't have, like, everyone's got like back in the days when he started the Woodstock Fruit Fest, he just didn't have that weird look, and like he kind of looked normal. And I was like, what's this guy's deal? And then I didn't hear from him too much after that. So, I mean, not personally, but like online, I didn't see too much from him.
Yeah.
I wonder if is he still doing it? Because I didn't see any pictures of him with all these fruit festival photos that came around. Is he still running that fruit festival?
I don't. Yeah, he doesn't go to them anymore. Not that I know. I've seen.
See, that's interesting. I remember he kicked out. I didn't kick out, but he did not renew the invite to Durian Ryder and Freely. And I remember that was the last I heard of him, and that was like 5-6 years ago. That was the last I saw him doing a video about why they didn't have them back at the fruit festival, and it had to do with the fact that they took a big departure from plant food or from whole food, and they now eat, like they were. Well, they're not even together anymore, but they were drinking like Sprite and eating pasta and pizzas. It was just totally. It wasn't the same philosophically and even in execution. Like. Right. What the Woodstock Festival was behind. So that was the last time I saw a video with that guy. Never saw him again.
Yeah, he disappeared for a long time. Yeah, I don't know if he still promotes it or is part of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Find out. All right, man, we got to wrap this up.
Man. Yeah, man. Thanks so much. This was fun, man. I always love chatting with you. I hope you keep doing the podcast. Just do them less if they're overwhelming you. Do them for fun first. It's fun and passion first.
Yeah. I just need to find some more people to interview, and maybe I just need to broaden my horizons a little bit.
Always, I always take the Gary V advice of document, don't create. So invite people, keep trying to get people on, but if you don't get it, you would be such a great product reviewer. You know what I mean? Do podcasts on your humor, your curiosity. Like, I think that there's so much content that you can just kind of self-create, even if there's even if there's no one around. I'd love to do that for my own podcast. I haven't had the time to do it, but and Q&As, people love your Q&As, man. I saw how many people responded to that thread that you put in the Dr. Morse page.
Oh yeah. I got a lot of hits on that one.
Yeah, man, you got a lot of people to engage with. So
yeah.
Don't put too much on the guests. Don't overthink it.
Yeah. I won't quit. I'm just rethinking, man, reorganizing.
Yeah. Reorganize, make it fun. Always make it fun.
Yeah, exactly. All right, cool, man. Well, thanks for connecting, man. It's fun having you on, and we'll have to get back and maybe hit some more of these questions in a later date.
Yeah, anytime. We'd love to do it.
All right, cool. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Chris, have an awesome day, brother, man.
Hey, if people want to get shirts, where do they go for?
Rootsandskyclothing.com.
Okay, and
they can check it there. If they go to my Instagram account, I've got everything there. So if you're in New York, you want to see us at Vitality, if you'd like a free copy of the fermentation ebook or the Vitality Broom Cleanse, you can get those. Are both free. You can grab them there. If you want a link to Roots and Sky Clothing, you can get that there. And whenever I'm doing any live events, usually in New York, whenever we do the live ones, I announce them all there. I announce my my treatment schedule there when I'm in New York doing appointments, so people could come hang out and see the Q&As that I do there as well. So
okay, and I'll put all the links in the show notes too.
Awesome. Thank you, my brother. Thank you. It was great to see you.
Thanks, man. All right.
Thanks, Chris.
Peace.